All right, so we are here with Daniel. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Very happy.
Yep.
Ivo and I are really happy to have you here on the summit. A lot of people are curious about your product, the crowdfunding, everything that's going on. So maybe before we dive in, tell us a little bit about your background. What did you do before, so we get like the perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Ner and Evo. Thank you very much for having me. So my background's predominantly in management consulting, focused on financial services. Originally from Melbourne, Australia, but have spent the past couple of years in different parts of the world as part of consulting with Ernst & Young. My early career was focused more on wealth and asset management and technology, strategy and operations. And then over time, started to take a deeper interest into digitizing financial services. I spent some time in Hong Kong, growing out one of the sectors, the wealth and asset management sector's practice for BY in Hong Kong, and spent time in China and Singapore as part of that. And then went over to London to do my MBA at London Business School. Spent a lot of time across Europe during that time, got really deep into the fintech scene and really interested. Spent some time over in New York, Columbia Business School. And then as part of my education, went over to Dubai for Islamic finance and spent some time in Myanmar around frontier markets as well. And I guess the end-to-end, being able to develop this end-to-end perspective around how different societies operate and how different people at different segments of the wealth pyramid think about and interact with money has enabled me to form a really, diverse perspective about what money means to people. And what's quite interesting is that money means very similar things to people in all different parts of the world. And the way that money impacts people is actually more of a function of around their access to it and their understanding of it. And I became very passionate about how can you use technology to simplify otherwise very complex concepts so that people can be nudged into developing the right behaviors around managing money. And that was very much around spending time looking at wealth management and digitizing wealth management. And I saw an opportunity to then apply that to retail banking, but then more holistically. And that journey has effectively led me back to Australia to launch Parpera, which is, Parpera means fair wallet in Latin. And the idea at its core is to develop a fair and transparent proposition that help people, firstly, focus on helping people set up, manage and grow their businesses. And then over time, to build out an ecosystem around that as well.
Amazing. So you saw an opportunity in Australia. So maybe you can give us a little bit background about business banking, business services, small businesses in Australia. What does the market look like?
Sure. So firstly, Parpera is a fintech, so we're not a bank. And in Australia, the market can be segmented in many different ways. But the way that one segmentation model that we use to look at it is you have retail banking focused on consumers. So they're around, Australia has a population of 25 million people. Around 18 million of those are banked. And to be banked, you generally need to be above 14 years of age, I believe it is. And then above that, you have again, it depends how you segment it, but basically I split it up into retail and then business. And within business, you have large businesses, you have medium-sized businesses, and you have small businesses. And then a subset of that is micro businesses. There are 2.4 million businesses in Australia. 2.1 million of those are micro businesses, so they have 0 to 4 employees. So that's 88% of the market. And then you've got 1.2 million that don't employ anyone at all, so they're non-employing. And that could be sole traders, it can be contractors, it can be single directors, structures as well. And then when you look at the needs of those people, particularly in the micro business segment, they often tend to fall within the cracks between consumer and business banking. And that's true in Australia, it's also true in other markets as well. So when we looked at the market segments, you've got your big four traditional banks, which mainly look to bank people either in the consumer space, or when you're looking at business banking, it really revolves around deposits and lending. And part of the challenge of serving micro businesses is that many micro businesses they have low to no borrowing needs. So it's actually quite difficult for a bank that operates a net interest margin model to find a profitable way to serve those businesses. And many of them serve them with the hope that they grow larger to then lend to. And given the way the economy is going and some of the challenges around businesses at the moment, that's often not the case. Then you've got new banks that have entered the market, and the new banks have actually done quite a good job of improving the level of service to businesses. Judo Bank has done exceptionally well in its first couple of years of operation. But Judo Bank's focused on lending only, and they lend a minimum of 250,000 and above. So again, it leaves this segment of the market that is still underserved. And then you've then got the neobanks and fintechs in the market, which if you see our segmentation model that we've published on the right-hand side, we sort of talk about, we've got non-banks, you've got fintechs, and you've got neobanks. The majority of the neobanks that have come to the market are focused on retail consumer segment. The non-bank lenders have focused on lending to medium to small businesses. And then realistically, the fintechs, the model that really serves as an international reference model for us is looking at what's happening in the UK, France, parts of Europe, and the US, and also parts of Asia. We've got propositions coming to market that are really focused around that sole trader, entrepreneur, or freelancer as well. And so that's where I sought inspiration for Parpera for Australia, and looking at how we could apply that model here in Australia to really help the way we serve people with operating their businesses, not only around providing them with an accounting card, but then opening up that offering to then provide them with products and services that are tailored to their needs, and then help them focus on how do they grow their business or better manage their business.
And tell us about, like, you're raising money, you're building this community, right? So what are your lessons so far? I know you're really on top of it right now. So
sure. So one of the things that I was fortunate to live through the rise of Monzo and Revolut in the UK. Mm-hmm. What I really loved about that, so I arrived in London in 2016, and I was actually at MoneyConf in 2016 in Madrid, and Revolut was there demonstrating their prepaid beta card and app. And at the time, they weren't that well known. And it was interesting to see some of the commentary around in the room. And I think a lot of people were wondering what the opportunity was for an application or for an offering that looked and felt like an incumbent, but then in 4 years since then has proven itself and scaled globally. And what was really interesting about that is, you hear some of the same questions and sentiment here in Australia. So in my view, Australia is still 3 to 5 years behind where the UK was. And what I really liked about some of the early neobanking propositions in the UK is that they focused strongly on community. And you had people that were otherwise usually not excited about finance and not excited about money, actually taking an interest and participating in the journey and building out the product and validating features and then being the early advocates. And it was actually really exciting to be a part of that. So when I came back to Australia and when I wanted to launch Parpera, one of the first things I wanted to do was put our members as part of the very early part of the business. And that inspired the crowdfunding effort, but it also inspired building a community as well. And so we're in a fortunate position where we could learn from what worked and what didn't work in other parts of the world. And so far, we've had some really good adoption around that. So we've had 1,400 businesses in the last 3 months sign up to our early waitlist. We're running an equity crowdfunding campaign to raise up to $800,000. At the time of this recording, we're at around $670,000. So we're hoping to close out the round very soon. As part of that, we have a large participation from our waitlist, which is really inspiring and reassuring as well. So building a community and building Parpera with the communities is really important to us, and we want people to be able to share in our success and share on that journey.
Amazing. So lead us through maybe the main features that those who are exposed right now. I'm sure we have a roadmap of where you're taking this.
Yeah. So the way we got to our features firstly was so I'm always a big fan of you've got your sort of hypotheses around what you think the problem is and how that's been demonstrated in other markets and how that's been solved. But what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to lift and shift a proposition or a solution from another market which didn't fit the nuances of the local context. So one of the first things we did was once we determined that Parpera and what it's going to do, we then interviewed and surveyed a number of businesses. So we interviewed over 30 businesses, we surveyed 500 businesses, and the key insights that came out of that helped us structure our product roadmap. So the 3 key jobs to be done framework is what we're using to I guess prioritize and rank what we build, make sure we're solving a real customer need. The first job to be done that came out of that study was businesses have an urgent and deep need to pay and receive money quickly and simply. So in Australia, we have not evolved as quickly in the business space around providing businesses with different mechanisms to make payments. So real-time payments is still in its infancy. we identified through the surveys that actually people want a simple and easy in-app invoicing tool. And so that's actually come up to the forefront of one of the features that we're looking to build. The second big item around the next job to be done was help me maintain my cash flow, better understand my expenses and my tax reporting obligations. And so this is something that's being done quite well, or at least emerging quite well in the UK at the moment. But in Australia, there isn't really a business offering which provides you with the card, the wallet, and then the enriched, I guess, insights around your expenses and income. And there isn't anything that's helping you identify what the taxable component of that might be and putting it aside for you. So there's an immediate improvement point that we can address there. And then on the third part of that, the third finding around the third job to be done was around help me access human support when I need it and access products and services that are relevant to my needs. And so when you think about setting up a business, we talk about this often that behind every business is a person. And I think a lot of the time when people develop a business proposition, they forget that actually underlying behind that business, and particularly when you're dealing with micro businesses, it's actually a person that you're serving. So it doesn't really matter that they're a business. That the fact that they have a business means that they have a certain complexity above the everyday personal needs around financial services. And it's how do you then structure that product or service? Parpera and what we can do to help people. It's not about deposits and lending. It's about how do we understand the different jobs to be done that you have around your money management journey as a person and a business. Then how do we build the product out to support that? And I always like to say that money underpins everything that we do in our lives. It's very hard to do anything without using money. And so that's why we start with the wallet and card. And then once we've established the hygiene factors around the ability to onboard instantly, the ability to have a card virtually issued. So just on that point, in Australia, virtual card issuance upon account opening isn't necessarily a standard thing for businesses. For one of the leading propositions in Australia in terms of like total number of customers, when you sign up to their business banking proposition, you need to go into the branch often. They will send you a card in the mail, and then you'll need to wait for that card to arrive before you get your virtual card, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a virtual card to start with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sort of simple, like those what I call the hygiene factors that can be improved. And then once we've got the hygiene factors right, so the card, wallet, paying and receiving money, then we'll move into the marketplace and different offerings around that as well. And we'll also look into working capital funding, which we'll look to develop over time as well. But initially it will be around addressing those three jobs to be done. And as I like to say, the hygiene factors.
I see.
How ready
interested
are you to scale, like because it sounds so important right now of course during COVID time, there's a lot of freelancers, small businesses. Like how ready you are in onboarding more businesses like that? So
if I understood your question correctly, so I believe COVID's actually accelerated the need for our proposition. So as I mentioned, still in Australia, when you open up a business account, a lot of the time it's difficult to be KYC'd and onboarded directly onto the app or onto the offering. What COVID has done actually, so there's been a couple of different trends. So one is across all industries, digitization has become a much more important factor, and people want to deal digitally with things. And people that may not necessarily have done that now have been forced to do that. Secondly, unfortunately, there's been a huge displacement of jobs in multiple markets around the world. And so people have to figure out a way of how they're going to generate income. And that'll generate people to actually join the gig economy. And so as part of the recovery, I believe and this is my personal view, there will actually be a lot more freelancers, a lot more sole traders, and a lot more people starting up side hustles as time goes on. And Parpera is there to sort of help people with that. So when I talk about being a fair and transparent proposition that helps people set up, manage, and grow their business, we want to actually be there from the moment that you think about starting a business and help you on that journey. So ideally, in the mid to long term, what you'll find is when you come to Parpera, we can help you set up the business. We'll provide you the card and wallet, and then we'll provide you products and services around that. And there's some really interesting things you can do when you really have an opportunity to start again in terms of how you serve a business. If you didn't have to start with the legacy framework, what can you do? And we've got some really interesting discussions and features that we're going to be working on to release around that.
In terms we are talking about features, I would add my question. So I was basically researching the website and, like browsing all these features, partner integration, and I saw some screens with, let's say, I think Google Ads or something like that. So what's on roadmap? What do you plan for, integration, or there's some marketplace? There's even some marketplace.
Yeah, so
In the app.
there is a marketplace aspect of it, and there've been a number of offerings around the world that have that marketplace banking type element to them. For completeness, we don't have any confirmed partnership with Google at all. That's purely illustrative, that logo. But
Okay.
The partnership that we have worked on is a integration and go-to-market partnership with MYB. So that's an accounting software provider. That will be one of many integrations that we'll look to build out upon. And that really comes again as an acknowledgement that if you are a business, when you set up a business, there's much more to think about than just the money coming in and money going out. As a business, I need insurance, I need legal services, I need accounting services. I actually have a whole bunch of, even Parpera today has a whole bunch of SaaS subscriptions that it needs to manage. And through the marketplace, what ideally we'd like to do is build out a set of common products and services that we know businesses need to use in the new economy to be effective. And so that way, if you set up a business, you don't need to go on Google about like what are the top 5 productivity tools that I should use. It should be there for you, and that's where we're going with that. Is that we want to create a trusted community, which then provides you with a trusted service, and then over time, the products and services that you use as part of our proposition are also trusted. So we don't want to work with any partners that are not aligned to our values, and we want to make sure that the services that we provide through that marketplace are also fair and transparent as well.
I think it's great because you can choose, let's say, the accounting software you want. If it's the integration, you can choose your setup. You are not, stuck with something, default. You can really choose. I like the idea of marketplace, and I think in the future, especially with open banking, will be a big thing. So, big thumbs up for that, like that.
Thanks a lot.
Great. Just, before we finish, I wanted to really tap into the use cases again, like the use cases, because you build that product with the community. You said yourself, you interviewed, you know the pain. So tell us from the users that are already on the platform, how are you helping them? What is the feedback that you're getting? What is the real feedback from real people that are using it right now?
Yeah, so just to be clear in terms of where we are, we don't have a live product yet, so we're still in development. And in terms of the user interactions that we're having, it's a mixture of in-community interaction. So we've set up our forum. We're working on developing that initial rapport with people. So our forum's been alive for just over a month. So we've got 162 people registered on that, I believe, or maybe give or take a few. We effectively provide the forum acts as a platform to provide people a way to interact with us. We're also running closed sessions. Given that we were born during COVID, we've done those online. Again, one of the key features or use cases that came out of that is, and I was really surprised around how often invoicing came to the discussion so early on. It was not something that I experienced. It now exists with some of the propositions in the UK, but it was not something I experienced when I was there. It was one of the first things that came up. They said, well, to help us actually have better predictability around our cash flow, it would actually help if we could improve the way we receive money. And an active part of receiving money is actually issuing an invoice. But we did, through the surveys, we found that 65% of businesses still use spreadsheets, Word documents, and emails to send an invoice. And that invoice generally gets lost. And then you don't know if someone's paid it, so you need to go and reconcile. And at the end of the month, you end up with this really horrible process, and you spend hours on a weekend. It happens to me as well. And people are saying, well, actually, we wish that there was a better way to do that. So invoicing was really important. The need for multi-currency came through really strongly as well. So we are at a point in our, I guess, global evolution as a global society where, due to COVID at the moment, we're the most geographically separated we've ever been. But we're actually the most digitally, globally connected that we've ever been, which means that before, when I used to decide if I was Mr. or Mrs. Business owner, used to decide, do I do business with someone else in my state or territory or city? Now that decision to do business with someone it doesn't matter about geographic distance because they still can't see them. So actually now the whole world is open to do business with, even more so than ever before. But the financial services infrastructure doesn't really support that. And so how do we accelerate that change and support people to do that from day one? So multi-currency became a really important aspect of reducing the friction to do business. When I talk about hygiene factors, like that's one of them as well. Like how do you pay and receive simply and quickly? And so that was something that came through our community as well. And then what does keep coming through is the need for support. So what people find really frustrating is that when they call a bank, they call up with a problem to do with their card, but while they've got a problem with their card, they might also have a query about a transaction, and the bank will say, well, actually the transaction query needs to go to a different team, but the card query goes to that team. Maybe this example is not accurate, but basically people they're tired of being sent around, so they want one place to get all the answers. And then one more that I'll leave you with, and I think this is globally relevant. I think everyone gets excited about metal cards around the world, but I've never actually heard a relevant use case for it other than it looks nice and it's a status play, until I actually did an interview where I did find a real use case, and it was with a tradesman who goes on building sites often. And what he said is my card breaks often when I go onto the building site, and then I need to wait 2 weeks before I get my new card. And while I wait for that card, I can't make any transactions because my card gets frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't have virtual cards for many of the offerings, they can't reset the card and issue a new one. And so he said, it'd be really good if I had a metal card to stop breaking all the time. So that's the first time I've ever found a real use case for a metal card.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so there's certainly a deep amount of value. I mean, all the entrepreneurial literature out there tells you talk to your customers. And it's not an easy thing to do because it takes time and it takes a lot of effort. And there's this instinct to just run and develop the product because you've got all sorts of external pressures to do that. But actually, we found real value in spending a good 2 to 3 months and actually talking to people. And one of the things we are committed to is to continue to do that through that community. So as we close out our funding round, we'll re-engage the community and focus more on that as we build out our team as well. We want that to be a key component of our journey the whole way through.
So how do you collecting the feedback? Like, let's say from the socials or, so like what's the channels, let's say, you're communicating with, or you've got some testers, I guess. Okay.
So far the feedback's come through, we get feedback through our forum, and we get feedback through the interviews and surveys that we've done. So with the surveys, we used an independent surveying tool, and collected and collated it all, and we analyzed it.
Okay.
And then through the interviews, we took that feedback down and recorded it ourselves as well. So we've got a nice little Notion repository of all our different interviews, which is really helpful to refer back to.
Okay, so people, if they want to join the pre-beta, beta, or on the web, how do they find you? What do they need to do? Because people are watching us right now and they want to know how can they be on the list, right?
Yeah, so just to head to parpera.com and sign up to the mailing list. That forms our wait list, and join our community.parpera.com. And we'd love to have you part of the discussion and that's an open invitation to the global community as well. More people that will receive input from to help shape the product. We believe that it's a globally relevant product. So while we'll start in Australia, we do have global ambitions, and we'll share more on that as we progress.
Yeah, that was my question. I mean, how can you, what's the bigger vision here? And I think you want to take it global. Yeah,
so as I said at the start of the call, what I realized from my own personal global journey was that people all around the world face similar challenges when it comes to managing money, and similar challenges when it comes to managing money for their businesses. I was on a phone call just over the weekend with some friends in the Middle East, and I asked them, when you receive money as a business there, what do you do? And I knew the answer already, but I just wanted to see if it was any different there. And they say, well, we send an invoice. I said, well, that's interesting because we also send invoices here. And so like there are some things that over time have actually developed to be a global standard, and so if we can solve the problem here, that means we can solve it elsewhere as well. And then it's about adjusting to the local nuances. And I think we wouldn't be the first to try to do this, but other platforms have proven that once you've proven that you're addressing a real problem and you're solving a real need, that the ability to scale globally is there. And so that for us is something that I'm quite passionate about. I always wanted to build a global business, and part of going to get that global experience and education was to put myself in a position where I had the tools and networks to do that. So we're really looking forward to working with people to achieve that, and we welcome anyone who wants to join us in that journey, both through being a member of our community, but also supporting us through investment or connections to people that can help us with that.
Great. Daniel, thank you so much. I mean,
Yeah,
we're super excited, right, Ivo, about this product?
yeah, really appreciate it.
Following you on social
The
media,
interview,
LinkedIn.
and yeah, definitely let's be in touch, and we are excited to watch the updates. And
Good work so far with the crowdfunding and everything. And of course, people will still ask questions about you during the day today. So we'll make sure you see this, and all of you are invited. Yeah, just join the community and help build a great product.
Look, again, thank you very much, both of you, for having me on today. It's a pleasure to speak about Parpera and appreciate the support. If anyone does want to get in touch, you're welcome to visit us at parpera.com, community.parpera.com, or you can email me directly, daniel@parpera.com. So thanks a lot, and look forward to hearing your feedback and getting in touch.
Thank you very much.
thank you.